So welcome everybody, and let's kick off with our webinar. So we are in a webinar in the Advanced B2B Growth Marketing Growth Academy webinar series. And today's topic, and the topic we are going to talk about, is how to choose the right tech for data-driven marketing. And this is a broad topic. You can really approach these topics from really multiple perspectives. But today we are going to hear the story of Sevendos, and I think it's going to be a really interesting story. I promise you that. And we are going to hear how Sevendos has started basically from empty table, and how did they approach laying their market foundation for data-driven marketing. Hey, I'd like to introduce you to our today's guest, Emmi. Welcome, Emmi from Sevendos. Welcome to the webinar. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Mikko. Nice to be here. Maybe a few words about myself. I'm a marketing professional with, well, I would say 15, almost maybe 20 years of experience in marketing from different areas. I actually started, I had quite a long career at Hartwall doing B2C marketing, and then I jumped into B2B marketing, worked for Accenture for a while, and then for Wunderdog, which is one of the Sevendos companies, and now since of April I have been working with Sevendos, and I can share you a bit more about what is Sevendos later on, but you can see here also my LinkedIn account if you'd like to connect with me, and you can also just send me an email message if there's something after this presentation that you'd like to hear more about or spar about. Nice to see you all here today.
Thank you, Emmi. And my name is Mikko. I come from Advanced B2B. We are a HubSpot Diamond partner and growth marketing agency here in Malmi, Helsinki, Finland. And I have also pretty long background in marketing, sales related in-house functions before joining Advanced B2B five years ago. I'm also going to be your host today in this webinar. There are my contact details if you wish to connect with me. I'm happy to do so also and continue discussions after this webinar as well. All right. Hey, before we really kick in and start briefly the housekeeping practicalities, as you probably guessed, we are recording this webinar. So if you are not watching this live, it's because you are able to watch it later on. It's because we are recording this. And if you have any questions at any point during the webinar, there is a Q&A button on your screen. Please put all your questions there, and then we do our best to answer them at the end. And we have roughly 40 minutes still. And this is the agenda, the topics that we'll cover in more detail. Like I said, the story of Sevendos and how did Sevendos really approach laying their market foundation for data-driven marketing, which was the objectives they had in mind earlier this year. And we are going to hear Emmi's best tips and learnings also about how did Sevendos and Emmi and her team navigate in the market jungle to choose the right tools for themselves. And then interesting to also hear, like, what did they choose? So that's what we're gonna hear. And also, if you are in like the position or thinking about what type of MarTech tools you would need in your tech stack and what should you invest in next, I think this webinar is exactly for you. And Emmi will share also her best advice and pro tips from the past 6 months or so working for Sevendos. All right, Emmi, I believe that there might be some people who actually know what you do, but they might not know who you are. So I think that's kind of the logical first step. That would you start by briefly telling us who is Sevendos?
Yes, thank you, Mikko. I think this is a really exciting thing that we've been working on for the past 6 months or so. So Sevendos is a newly formed company. We have existed, like I said, about since April of this year. So we have just been recently founded. We are together, Sevendos is a group of 7 different technology companies, different digital consulting companies with their own expertise, own areas of expertise, from, for example, DevOps or cloud to data, Q&A, software development, design, cybersecurity. So we have a lot of these different areas of expertise in our portfolio, and we are kind of hoping to challenge the market with this new type of consulting model where you can get everything from a one-stop shop under one roof, but from 7 companies that actually work individually and are separate companies in that sense that this allows us to be very flexible through this structure, but still have the size and the capabilities of a larger consulting company. So I think this is a very exciting way to work in. And where the name Sevendos comes from is that, like I said, we are 7 specialist companies, but we are also supported by 2 bigger players in the field. So that's the DOS or 2 in Spanish, which is Reactor's Fusion ecosystem, and then Pravedo ecosystem, who are also backing up us in the background. So it's a very interesting way of working, I think.
Yeah, it really is, and I think that you have like 1,500 professionals, right? I mean that's pretty impressive amount of different skills and expertise you have under one roof. And just for as a background also for this webinar, so we are kind of also cousins with Advanced B2B and Sevendos. Like Advanced B2B is also part of the Pravedo ecosystem, and we have also worked together. Like we have, as Advanced B2B has helped Sevendos to build up their early MarTech foundation earlier this year.
Yes, all right, exactly.
Yes. Okay, but Emmi, can you tell us a little bit about the starting point and where did it all start earlier in 2023?
Yes. So what was the situation when we started? What actually happened is that the companies that joined this new structure were in very different starting points. Some of the companies had their own marketing team, some of them didn't. There were very different marketing maturities in these companies. And what we actually did is that we who, for example, me, who came from Wunderdog company, we joined together as one marketing team. So now actually we have only one joint marketing team for all of these Sevendos companies, and we work kind of as an internal marketing agency. And then in addition to that, we founded a completely new brand, which was Sevendos. Started thinking about the name and the brand and the designs for that too. And then, of course, the main point or the main question was how to consolidate the tech stack, the marketing tech stack between these companies, to be able to create synergies in both marketing and sales, since we have now one marketing team and we want to build synergies, want to be able to compare data and work for the best interest of these companies. But yeah, I think we can. Yes, go ahead, Mikko.
Yeah, I just about to say that's like a really interesting background that you're coming from. I mean, you're kind of starting something fresh, but at the same time you're not, because you have still these 7 companies with their own tech stacks and legacy tools. So I'm curious to hear, like, how did you start prioritizing things? I mean, did you go sales first? Did you go marketing first, or something else first? I mean, I think you were also kind of forced to prioritize things, even though you were starting from kind of an empty table.
Yes, I think this is a very good question. We were starting from a really empty table where we, during the time that we actually at the same time were were building the tech stack and thinking about what tools to choose, we were at the same time building our own internal ways of working, our team structures, sales structures. So I think it wasn't the most optimal situation in that sense, that we could have done more work together with different teams if we had different kind of corporate, or not corporate, but company structures already from the beginning. But I think that that still it all went very well. And what we started was, we sort of did this small inventory about what tools were the companies using, what was their situation, to understand what is our starting point, and how far along sort of in the data-driven decision making and data-driven marketing were all these companies in. But we made it very clear to ourselves that we want to start with a clean slate, with a tabula rasa, so to say, so that we don't take sort of these legacy systems automatically and just transfer them to Sevendos use, but to make sure that we actually choose the tools that work best for the new structure, the new marketing structure. And yes, we work in a way where the teams have a really nice mandate to make own decisions about our ways of working. So we, within the marketing team, had the mandate to think about which tools were the best for us. But of course, we wanted to take into consideration what tools is sales using, and so that we make sure that we do the right things. But of course, it's very easy to go into silos and think about these things in silos and not do work together. So my kind of pointer or hot tip is that it's very important for especially sales and marketing to work together, so that we don't end up, and then also other teams to work together, so that we don't end up in a situation where another team might choose a very different kind of stack than the other team does, and then there's maybe many Kanban tools used, and things work in a bit different ways. So I think cooperation is really important.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you don't want this debate between different companies or teams, like hey, we want this and we want that, and then there's someone in the middle trying to solve that. But good to hear you had like a good cooperation there between sales and marketing. I think that's really the best way to go. Okay, all right. Hey, let's move on, and I'm changing the slide.
Yes,
there we go.
That is the correct one. Yes. So then these are things that we considered in our team. I will share with you some examples, but I think these are things that would be very good for everyone to consider when choosing a tech stack. And thank you also for my colleague Anna Vahtera, who has been very involved in this. She's a strong digital expert in our team, and she was also very involved in this work, considering the things that we should discuss and that we should take into consideration when we choose the tools. Well, first of all, I think the most important question is, what is your core need? What is it actually that you need from this tool in order to do your work and to do strategic marketing? And I think what is important here is that what you have, is it actually a need or is it a desire? Because there are a lot of tools available, and it's very hard to go it's very easy to go deep into the vast selection and start thinking about which ones are the coolest and which ones have the most things and gadgets that in there that you could use. But working based on a desire can actually make you do work that's not necessary, that's not needed. If you truly know what you want, you get the kind of tool that you actually need, instead of maybe having a tool that doesn't serve your purposes right, or has many kind of different gadgets or different things that you could use, but you're not actually ending up using them because they are not in your core needs. So it might be that you actually end up paying for something very fancy, but then for something that you're actually not using, you might be using maybe 20% of the capacity of the tool. Or you might end up using a completely wrong tool where actually you can't get the data or the things that you'd actually need. So I'd say that is a very, very important question. Pro tip: take advantage of trials. The tools usually they usually offer trials, maybe a few week periods where you can sign up for free and test the tools. I think this is a good way of getting an understanding whether the tool would work for you. You can even choose tools in the same category, like Supermetrics and Porter Metrics, for example, what we did, and check if they work for your benefit, and then make the decision. Then I think what analytics and data is required is very important to know. What level of data or analytics, and then of course GDPR, information security is very important to think about, especially when we work in the EU area. EU is very specific about data and data transferring. So we did take that into consideration. Also, we did check how the tools use our data and share our data. And then this was really interesting. This was actually something that you, Mikko, also brought up, was when we discussed about this topic earlier, was the future proofing of your tech stack. So what we are talking about here is, do you have room to grow in the tech stack you choose? For example, we are starting as a new company, Sevendos. We are just kicking off the things that we do in marketing. It might be that we are scaling up our work a lot in the next year. It might be we are scaling up our activities. We need to have room to grow also. I think this is a very, very important thing. And then also one thing that we considered, which I think was really interesting, is the kind of this time versus money angle and the opportunity cost. We actually, now that we are working as a sort of like an internal consulting agency, like internal marketing consulting agency, we checked with, for example, HubSpot licenses, the level of automation that we would get with certain licenses, and what the price for that automation would be versus if our team did the same work manually, and what would be the cost of our work for that hour. For example, if we worked manually for an hour to get certain data versus if we would get that automatically but pay for the license, what would be the difference in costs? So I think this was kind of an interesting business case to make, also to see what makes sense budget-wise, because we also know that budgets aren't unlimited for most companies.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I really like that point, that you actually calculated the cost of doing manually versus investing in a tool that can automate that. That's very good pro tip. Something maybe from my side to add here about considerations for the tech stack. I would add like flexibility and adaptability. Like, especially if you're starting something new, you already know that you don't know everything, and you know, for example, that your first approach to sales is likely to change over time, and you cannot be sure what marketing works for you until you try and experiment. And this was probably our biggest concern as like a provider in our corporation, that how do we make sure that we don't tie you up into some tech stack that doesn't adapt to your still unknown needs. And we were thinking a lot this together internally with the team, because I mean, as an example, if you go live with the CRM system, for example, that's a snapshot in your life today. But you cannot get stuck into that, because everything around you is likely to change. And it's actually pretty easy to find a tool for your needs right now, but it's far more difficult to be future proof. And that's why I think it's important to have some kind of roadmap and practice to regularly review that, because you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you need to have where you have to do like a reboot in 1 year or 2 years time. So maybe my pro tip to add here is that when you're making decisions about the MarTech tools, think about how flexible, how adaptive they are, and how well do they scale into your like a possible future scenarios. And I know that it might be difficult to come up with the concrete future scenarios, but at least try to be as concrete as you can, because that will then help you maybe rule out some of the tools you might be considering.
Exactly. I think that's a very good tip. And that's what we did, for example, with HubSpot. That was one of the tools that we chose. We looked into the licenses and the license levels, and we saw that we have room to grow. And what it's good to see like what the license levels are and what do they offer. If you see like this level is enough for me today, but then you have still room to grow, for example, with licenses within the tool, so that you don't have to start all over again, just like you said, Mikko.
Yeah,
very good tip.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, but hey, I think everybody is starting to be eager to hear like where did you end up and what tools did you choose?
Yes.
So I guess this is the situation where you are today.
Yes, this is pretty much the situation today, and I was thinking that I would go these through. That's why we have this great map of tools here, because I thought that by like telling you examples of what we chose for different purposes, you might get an idea of our thought process in this. Of course, right now we are in a situation where the company is still very fresh, very new. The team is very new. We are still piloting with certain license levels, leaving room for growth, just like we discussed. We still have integrations ongoing, like Mikko's team is helping us currently, for example, with HubSpot integrations with sales and marketing. And we are seeing already a lot of improvements in efficiency and the quality of data, especially for those companies whose marketing maturity was very low compared to some others. But I think like here I could introduce some examples. So I already talked about HubSpot. We're going to use that as a CRM tool, and we are going to use that also for marketing automation. I think it makes a lot of sense that sales and marketing are using this kind of same tool and are in the same systems, because it's very, very easy for us to build funnels, sales funnels, and marketing funnels, know where we are in nurturing the customers or possible contacts and prospects. You get good data from sales, and you can create automations to nurture the clients in the pipeline. Monday, it's a work management tool. It's something that we took into use at Underdog maybe a year ago, a bit over a year ago, and we have really liked it. And then we actually decided that, hey, this license makes sense to move over to Sevendos. And now we also have the people operations team in Sevendos using the same tool. So we were able to grow the use of that tool. We use it for following our budgets, following our social media pipelines, our content pipelines, project pipelines. It provides a lot of different ways to manage your work, even your personal work. We use it in marketing team meetings also to see what are our current working levels or our current weekly situations, and how are our resources divided. I think that's been a very good tool. About WordPress, why I wanted to bring it up here is that of course we were thinking about, now we have a new brand, Sevendos. We need to create a website for Sevendos, which is currently under build with actually some developers and designers from Wunderdog, which is also one of the Sevendos companies. But we were naturally thinking about which CMS system do we choose. And I think this might be one of the key elements that a lot of companies are thinking about. And I think this was a really interesting thing also, how we thought about this, and how we really thought about our needs and what we would need from the tool in order for marketing to be able to ideally update the website, run the things we need, but then as flexibly as possible, in that sense that, for example, you might have a website where you need to do a lot of interactions. You need to be able to make payments. You need to be able to see different kind of records. You need to be able to log in. These might be, companies like, well, banks, for example, or e-commerce. But we don't have that kind of a need. Our website is a marketing tool for us to show what Sevendos offers, and then it doesn't make sense to go that far into the end of the spectrum to have this really hard-coded tool. And then in the other end of the spectrum are the so-called what you see is what you get tools, and we are more close to that end in that sense that it offers us the flexibility, but not we don't need to be as complex as for example banks. In the middle here, you can see all the Google tools that we use. I think this is pretty basic stuff. I think these are very familiar to everyone, hopefully, but these are what we use for data management, for campaigns, and for analyzing our campaigns. Sorry, I'm a bit sorry, working here on I just pressed some weird button, sorry. But yeah, anyway, then we also, I think this was also done with advanced B2B, that we shortly looked into our cookies on the different websites of our companies and how we were running those, and for example, some companies had an own very hard-coded version of cookies also, for example, and then it might be very hard to stay on top of the legislation, stay on top of the current requirements if you are doing everything manually. So already for some of the companies, we decided to move into CookieBot, where you also get a lot of these functions automatically, so that you don't need to do those yourself, and that has helped us already tremendously and worked on our favor, for example, in website analytics. And then, yes, Porter Metrics. This might be a tool that some people are not that familiar with, but it's pretty much a competitor for Supermetrics, which then, in other hand, might be something that people know a bit better. We use this one for integrating the marketing channels and the marketing data for easier analytics. And this is also something that came sort of as a legacy from another Sevendos company, but we saw that this was a really good way to integrate the data and get good reporting from there, instead of having to look through the data from different tools and different channels. So we're trying to automate things as much as possible, create as easy integration as possible to make all the data for different companies as comparable as possible so that we can learn from what each company does. Seeing that, hey, this company actually did a very good marketing campaign that worked very well with this kind of strategy, and then you can compare the data with the other companies. That's a very nice privilege that we now have, that we are 7 different companies, but we are actually able to compare what the other companies are doing and learn from each other. And I think that's very valuable, and that these tools have helped us already a lot with that. We have been comparing SEO results, for example, for different companies.
Yeah, and it also, I guess, helps you get started faster, because you, in this sense, you don't have to start from scratch, but you actually have the running practices that you can take the best bits from the existing companies and then build on top of that. So that's really cool. Emmi, one question. We started this webinar about explaining that you were looking to be data-driven. Looking at this now, if you would scale yourself, like score yourself on a scale, let's say 1 to 10, 1 being you are not data-driven, you are rather lost with data, and to 10 being like you're doing everything based on data. How would you say, where are you at the moment?
Well, I'd say that we are not maybe in 10 yet, because we are such a new company and we're still thinking a lot about our ways of working. But I think what we have really done well is that we have thought a lot about how we want to measure our work. For example, our marketing team's work, to see what is the quality of our work internally, and then what is the quality of the work externally, meaning the quality of our campaigns and our activities and how they are running. So I think what we have at the moment is a really good view of where we should be and how the data should work for us. Well, I talked to the digital expert Anna that we have in the team, and I asked her where she thinks we would be. And as I have to say that she's such a professional in the data, in her own work and in data analytics, that she gave us around, I think it was 5 or 6, but I would be a lot more optimistic than what she is, because I know she really would want everything to work perfectly, in the sense that that she's really deep into the data. But I think I would say we are around 7 or 8 at the moment. But okay. But I think we're getting there really well. Like I said, for example, the HubSpot integration is still ongoing, so that's why I wouldn't also give us a 10, because we're still starting there, and things are a bit unfinished. But I hope next year we will be at 10.
Yeah, I need to ask this question from you, like in the end of the year, and then later on to see where you think you are. Yes. One more thing. I mean, this is where you are today, but if you were to look like 6 months back, like anything particular that you think has kind of caught you by surprise, or something you would have done differently if you were in a position to redo everything?
Yeah, that's also a very good question. I think we wouldn't have done anything differently in that sense, that we would have chosen a different stack, for example. I think currently we have exactly the type of stack that we need, marketing tech stack, and I can see that we have a lot of room there to grow. These tools will work for us, hopefully for years to come, and hopefully even enable us to do more integration between the companies. So I think the way we did the decision making was really good. I wouldn't do things differently there, definitely. What if there was something that took us by surprise? I think it's always, like you said actually earlier, is that when you jump into a situation where you have one completely new brand, but 6 existing ones, you don't really know what lies behind, sort of like under the surface before you get a good peek in there. And of course, it's quite hard to take 7 different brands and create create the data that is comparable from very different starting points and from very different ways of measuring things. There were a lot of differences, of course, like which KPIs were the companies using, what had been the most used channels, for example, or so on. So there was a lot of differences, and a lot of differences, especially in data, and of course it's very hard to consolidate all of this. But I think it also helped that we took into consideration that we are now a new team. We are starting everything from scratch. Like now we can also leave the legacy behind that some companies might have, and we can start thinking fresh. Okay, this is our team. What does our team need in order to be successful? And then start building from there and see what can we, or how we make that existing data work for our benefit in that new model.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's always easy to just collect the data, but how you can actually use that, and that's typically a different story. Yeah. All right. Good things, and interesting to see like where you are after 6 months or so. Like this is what you came up with. What about the future then? I mean, do you know what's going to happen next in your journey to do data-driven marketing at Sevendos?
Yes. So like mentioned many times, Sevendos is a new brand. Right now, we are kicking off these activities for this new brand. I think that will be very interesting to see how this, now when we start marketing this new brand and we have these good tools where we can do great analytics and follow how our activities are doing, we can really start seeing how this brand and our new messages work in the market. I think that's going to be really interesting to see. If we have done a lot of work within the past year to formulate the marketing messages and communications for this brand, and how we want to talk about this brand to the public, and it's going to be really interesting to see if that resonates. I'm really excited about that. We are going to be focusing more on targeted marketing, seeing if we can, via these tools, for example, having a joint HubSpot for all of these 7 companies, if that helps us also in sales related marketing, if we can do more targeted marketing via that tool. I think that's also a very interesting thing to see how we can all play together in this field when we have done things somewhat separately before. Then, of course, our deep aim, or our core aim, is to have as simple processes as possible between these 7 brands. It's quite a big stack of brands also to manage. We want to, like I already mentioned, make sure that the data is comparable. We are following the right metrics and analytics. We harmonize the ways of working between companies. And of course, one thing is the equal or fair investment costs for companies. So like I mentioned, we come from very different backgrounds, very different marketing maturities. Some companies have, for example, had very wide licenses for HubSpot marketing. Others have had smaller ones, or other companies have not had these licenses before. And then when we take these tools into the use for all of these 7 companies, we sort of need to make sure that we also treat everyone equally, in that sense that they get the same service now that everyone is paying the same amount. And well, of course, it's nice that we're an internal marketing agency, so we're not favoring anyone. We don't have a favorite customer, but in that sense that we can help these companies as well as we can, and provide ROI for their investment for these tools that some companies, for example, might not have had in use before, and they might wonder, why do we need to pay for these now? So you also kind of need to explain this and say why we have chosen these tools and how are we using them.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, one question came to my mind, like, do you already know that, have you considered that what will be your next MarTech investment, and kind of what does adding that maybe new tool mean to your processes? Like, will it fit in nicely like a glove, or is that still a bit of unknown, what's going to happen from that side in the future?
I'd say that we haven't thought about what would be maybe the big marketing, or well, yeah, sorry, let me rephrase that. We have been thinking that we probably don't have the need to add any more or any new tools to our stack, and I would try to keep it quite, well, not to the minimum, but quite low, in that sense that the more integrations you build between tools, the more difficult it becomes to manage and to automate. But what we have been thinking about is the licenses that we currently have. And I think a big thing that will tell us where we will go with the licenses is the planning that we will start doing for next year. This year we started so that all of the companies had their own marketing plans already made for this year. So we kind of just jumped in and started thinking about how to consolidate all of this together. Next year we will be making these plans together, and also the plan for Sevendos, and then we will start seeing a more clear picture of what are the needs for next year, and if we need to, for example, revamp some licenses, or if they are enough for us at the moment. And so that's maybe something that we will be thinking about. And like you said, if it will fit like a glove, I think in this situation, when you have really considered, like really truly considered if the tech stack is right for you, then it should fit like a glove. So also being future-proof in that sense, that the new investments that you might need to make go together with your old tech stack.
Yeah, that's it. All right. Hey, thank you, Emmi. The time has gone by really, really, really fast, and we are already at Q&A at the moment. There's actually a few questions. Let me read it. What would you say are the minimum requirements for marketing tech stack? What tools would you say everyone should have to be able to make data? So 2 questions kind of at the same time. So the minimum requirements for marketing tech stack.
Yes, that's a very good question. I would say that I would try to make the data collection part as easy as possible, to leave you the room and the time you need for analyzing and actually using the data to be data-driven and to make data-driven decisions. So what we did, for example, like I mentioned before, we already, when I was working at Wonderdoc, we already started thinking whether we should have something like Supermetrics in use, and we chose Porter Metrics for this purpose, that you can collect the data from different different tools, for example, from LinkedIn or Meta or other sources, and put them together and create reports and analyze the data in there. I think this is something that I would really consider. Because it reduces a lot of the time and the amount of time used for collecting the data, and then it actually gives you time to analyze it and make the right decisions.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Another one. This is a direct question. Have you considered other web analytic tools besides GA4?
That's a good question also. There was a lot of discussion, or has been a lot of discussion around GA4 recently, and I think even more last year. We did consider tools. We also started this process. We started thinking about other tools, or have been considered other tools like Matomo, for example. But I don't know, or I'm not sure if the audience knows, that as of now, there's no longer a legal issue actually with the data transferring with GA4. So we actually, in the end, decided to go with GA4, also because it's free and it integrates with Google, and we are currently working in the Google workspace. So that was our decision. But this was at some point also discussed within the ecosystem in a larger perspective, and we were really eager to hear what are other companies going to do. I think this is also very fruitful in the sense that we have this bigger ecosystem of companies where we can discuss these things together and think about what would you do at your company, and could we maybe mirror that to what we are doing. But yes, GA4 was the way to go for us in the end.
Yeah. Okay, hey, thanks, Emmi. We are sadly running out of time, but like I said in the beginning, that if you want to continue discussions with us, the details are there, and you are free to be in touch with us for any future questions or continue this discussion. Final surprise and offer for you, everyone. So if you are thinking about investing in your tech stack, or you're considering the same things as we have been discussing here in the webinar, we are offering you a free tech stack consultation call to help you identify the gaps you have in the MarTech stack, give you some recommendations about the roadmap, and give you like the concrete one single tip what you should do to make the biggest impact. You will get the instructions how to use this offer in the email you get after this webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. The time flew by really fast. Thank you, Emmi. Super big thanks for being here with us. And please stay tuned for more Advanced B2B webinars. But for now, thank you and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this webinar. Have a great day.